I'm your gaming librarian coming at you with a new episode of Intro to Gaming in Libraries. And so today I will be talking about, drum roll please, E3 2021 picks for your library collection. So the E3 2021 conference just finished up yesterday with Nintendo and Bandai Namco giving their final presentations. Often referred to as sort of like the Christmas of June for gamers. E3 sort of highlights games that are going to fill in the rest of the year, so from June until December, as well as future titles to be excited for. So in this episode, I'm just going to focus solely on titles coming in 2021. Most of them will have confirmed release dates, though some titles, you may notice I just put holiday 2021 or 2021 in general. That means that as far as I know, as far as the news that I read, the developers are saying that the game is still coming out this year. They just haven't set down a confirmed release date just yet. And so what I will do is I will start with the Nintendo Switch, go through PlayStation exclusives, and then finish off with Xbox exclusives before then going on to multi-platform games. So games available on multiple consoles. So for the Nintendo Switch, there was quite the showing yesterday at the Nintendo Direct. So if you have the opportunity, I covered some of the highlights from that Direct and some of the games that really stood out to me yesterday in my special episode of Gaming Narratives. But there are some that I didn't get a chance to talk about. So beginning with Mario Golf Super Rush. So coming out June 25th, this is a golf title in the very infamous Mario series of sports games. Similar to the tennis similar to the Mario Tennis game that came out back in 2019. This one features motion control, so you can use the Joy-Con as your virtual golf club, so to speak. There's also a fun variety of modes, so it's not your traditional golf game. There are modes that make it a little more interactive, make the game of golf a little more fast-paced. And finally, Nintendo has listened, and they are bringing back the hugely requested story campaign where you can build your own Mii character and run it through like an RPG. On July 9th, we have Monster Hunter Stories Wings of Ruin releasing. And so the best way to describe Monster Hunter Stories is if Monster Hunter met Pokemon. So instead of doing the traditional survival adventure game like you would find in Monster Hunter Rise that just came out in March, this one is a little more family-friendly, kid-friendly, and adaptable to an younger audience, where you're going around and collecting monsties who will then battle for you. And so set in the Monster Hunter universe, if you loved Monster Hunter Rise, I strongly recommend bringing this one into your library. And of course, I forgot to mention with Mario Golf, if you're thinking of program ideas, by all means, I encourage you, if you have teens that come to your library or kids, load up the speed golf mode, have them use motion controls, and they'll have an absolute blast taking part in that activity, and it introduces them to the core concepts of golf. Coming out on July 16th is The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD. So this is an HD remaster of the 2011 Skyward Sword title, and as I alluded to in yesterday's episode, probably going to be perhaps a little bit of a precursor to Breath of the Wild 2 and help fill in the gaps. But this is sort of the last HD remake within the Zelda franchise that has been done in recent years. And so definitely worth picking up to add to your collection. I know for my library, any Zelda title is guaranteed to be an absolute hit. To the point that I would recommend maybe getting 2 copies just to make sure that you have enough coming in. And again, featuring motion controls, but not motion focused only like the original game was. The HD remake does allow for actual control input, so traditional thumbstick and face button control usage. Coming out in August, exclusively for the Nintendo Switch, is No More Heroes 3. So an action-paced game that is sort of over the top and most definitely M-rated. This is going to be for your adult audience that you serve at your library. But for those who know No More Heroes, it does have a bit of a cult following, and it is an absolute gem of a game. With it coming out on the 27th, I would recommend picking it up right away, as sometimes No More Heroes games can be a little bit harder and rarer to find later on down the road. Recently announced yesterday, WarioWare Get It Together is going to be one of 2 party-focused games coming out this fall for the Nintendo Switch. And so if you have an audience in your library that you know enjoyed Super Mario Party for the Switch, WarioWare is sort of like a quirkier take on that. So you're basically getting a collection of 200 minigames, but the minigames, unlike Super Mario Party, that can last a couple of minutes, WarioWare is very condensed, and you only have roughly 5 seconds to get through a WarioWare match effectively. And thank you, Diva Mechanics, for checking in for the emote. It is nice to see you. And so releasing on September 10th, if you're looking for an alternative to add to your collection that will complement Super Mario Party, as well as Mario Party Superstars coming out in October, WarioWare is worth exploring. This one I'm actually really excited to run as a program, just because of the 5-second nature of these games. It never gets boring, and you can sort of make it a challenge amongst your youth participants to sort of see who can do it best. And for the first time in this franchise, it is allowing for co-op, so you can have 2 players playing at once, which can really make for some chaotically fun times. The final conclusion in the Metroid Fusion trilogy, so Metroid Dread, is coming out on October 8th. It's been a while since we had a Metroid game actually release on a mainline Nintendo console. So there's been a whole bunch of handheld titles that have come out, including 2017's Samus Returns. But if you have a really dedicated, die-hard Nintendo Switch audience at your library, this is going to be one that you want to add, as it's really going to take off. It is a 2D side-scroller, so it's not in the Metroid Prime, which is a first-person perspective on the Metroid franchise. Instead, this is classic 2D with a 3D art style to the characters. But just considering the fan reception and knowing that a lot of adults in particular, so those who are around my age, who grew up in middle school and high school with Metroid Fusion, are going to be looking at this game and wanting to take it out. So similar to Mario Golf, similar to Zelda, Metroid is one of those big headline titles that you definitely want to get duplicates of if you can afford to do so. And so this is coming out October 8th. Towards the end of the month, you have Mario Party Superstars. So this originally released on the Nintendo 3DS, but it was only the mini games. This time around, what they've done is not only have they included and up-res the 100 mini games that were featured across various N64 and other Mario Party titles, but they have also included 5 classic N64 game boards. So if you're like me and you grew up with Mario Party 1 through 3 on the N64, and I know you exist out there, if anyone remembers, that was the game that gave you the horrible palm blister after playing that game that required you to just move the joystick as fast as humanly possible. You don't have to worry about that here. So no need for concern over palm blisters. But this is going to be an absolute hit. I know at my library, Super Mario Party is absolutely treasured amongst our community, especially towards the winter months where people are spending more time inside. They're hosting more family and social gatherings. And what are they wanting to do if they have a Switch? They're coming into the library and they're picking up party-oriented games. Things like Mario Golf, Mario Tennis, Overcooked, and Mario Party is the #1 hit that people pick up, as well as Mario Kart. So October 29th release date. So if you're looking at 2 big Nintendo titles in October, Metroid Dread at the beginning of the month, and then Mario Party Superstars at the end. A bit of a niche title. Shin Megami Tensei 5 has been a long time in the making. However, if you've heard of the Persona series of games, most recently with Persona 5 Royal, this is the same maker. So Atlas is the developer, and whereas Persona is the more introductory version of the SMT universe, so a little less difficult, a little more accessible. This is for the hardcore, so to speak. Still has the RPG mechanics. You are still hunting and collecting monsters. However, the gameplay has a sort of steeper difficulty and learning curve to it, and is a traditional dungeon crawler. However, those who are in the know about Persona are definitely going to be very excited about this release. And if you can afford to add it to your library towards the end of the year, I strongly recommend adding it to your collection, as it's one of those niche titles, similar to No More Heroes 3, where if you're hesitating on picking it up at first, and maybe a harder title to find later on down the road. Now, a title that you won't have any issues finding because it will literally be everywhere are the remakes and remasters of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. So in this case, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Given the little chibi art style, Pokemon games in any library collection, I'm sure not just my own, will have a million holds on it and will circulate forever and a day. And so expect the case, that to be the case with your library if you add this to your collection. I would recommend getting both, so don't just get one or the other, because the inherent nature of Pokemon, if you are new to the franchise, is that there are exclusive Pokemon to each version, and sort of the idea behind having both is that it encourages you to trade with other players or Poke trainers who have the other copy of the game themselves. If you are looking to save a bit of money, Nintendo has offered this in a double pack that you can purchase. So I know Canadian, it comes out to about $150, so it's saving you about $10 to $20 total, which doesn't seem like much, but if you know that you're getting both anyway, just give a heads up to your cataloger to say when the package comes in, you would like it cataloged separately, and then you can add these 2 brilliant titles, no pun intended, to your collection. And this comes out November 19th. And so wrapping up the year itself, and recently announced yesterday, was Advanced Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp. In a similar vein to Mario Party, to Metroid Dread, this will be sort of a hidden gem to add to your collection, but certainly one that will appeal to your adult audience, like myself, who are in their late 20s, early 30s. This is a game that gamers back in the early 2000s loved and adored. And so it's getting a full remaster by the fantastic studio Way Forward, who did the Shantae titles. So as you can tell by the cartoon aesthetic of the characters here. But it comes with both of the Game Boy Advance games remastered. This does offer up to 4 people in multiplayer matches, and it is a strategy title. So yes, it is a niche game all around, but one that if you have an audience who grew up with this game, they're absolutely going to love the fact that your library is carrying it. And for a new generation who's never been exposed to this game, but maybe fans of the Fire Emblem series, a game series also published by Nintendo and also created by Intelligent Systems, so the folks responsible for Advance Wars, this is definitely worth adding to your collection, because essentially Advance Wars is Fire Emblem, except strip away the fantasy and the dragons of Fire Emblem and put in tanks and superpowers, and you have Advance Wars. And so this is wrapping up the year on December 3rd, and we will likely, and I'll stand corrected, I will announce games if there's any later release post this fact, but typically Nintendo will release one sort of hidden gem of a game every year in that first week of December, and then that's it until the new year begins. Now, for the PlayStation 4 and 5, there are a limited number of titles in this particular episode. That's because PlayStation did not directly present at E3. However, I would not be surprised in the next couple of weeks if we saw a more Sony-specific state of play, which is what they like to call their presentations, given. And once that is done, I will highlight it both in this episode series as well as my gaming narratives. But for right now, some of the exclusives that we know about is Deathloop, and so this is exclusively for the PlayStation 5, releasing on September 14th. It's done by Arcane Studios, so the folks behind the Dishonored series. So if you've been carrying that series in your library, definitely check out Deathloop. If you have fans of Assassin's Creed, so the assassination aspect with a bit of a faster pace to it, Deathloop is that, but with time travel as well. So definitely something worth adding to your collection, especially if you're looking to sort of mix it up and add a bit of gaming diversity to your collection. Now, this has a release date of 2021 in general, so we don't have a very firm specific date yet, but the developers at Guerrilla Studios have assured us that Horizon Forbidden West, the sequel to Horizon Forbidden Dawn, will be coming out this year. And so often referred to as sort of this, Breath of the Wild of the Sony platform. This is a massive open world RPG. Looks absolutely gorgeous, faster paced, bigger world than the first game offered. And so it's definitely going to be one that you want to add to your collection. Thankfully, this is a cross-platform game, so it's coming out on both the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. If you have the money to afford it and add both titles to your collection, they will be releasing separately. However, if you are limited in your budget and can only afford one of the console versions, it is definitely worth picking up the PlayStation 4 one because it will still serve your PlayStation 5 audience with the backwards compatibility that the game offers. And I'm sure there will be some sort of graphical update that enhances the game once the PS4 disc is put into the PS5. Xbox, though, presented at E3, and so they gave us a bit of a deeper showing of what they have coming up towards the end of this year. And so with most of these titles, it should be noted that if you have a Xbox console in your library that you use for in-library programming, it is worth keeping the eye open on Game Pass, because a lot of these games are releasing day and date on the Game Pass service. Again, I will preach it until the cows come home. Game Pass is a fantastic value, especially for in-library programming if you have an Xbox console. And as I alluded to in my special gaming narratives episode covering Microsoft's coverage at E3, with discussions of them looking into bringing the Xbox sort of gaming ecosystem to internet browsers through streaming sticks and through dedicated TV apps. We may find that by the end of the year, if not into 2022, there are opportunities for libraries to have an Xbox console without actually owning the box itself. And thankfully, news just came out today as well. Microsoft has confirmed that, for example, if you have an Xbox One, but you want to be able to play the newest Xbox Series X game that might be exclusive, for example, Flight Simulator, what they're allowing people to do is stream through the cloud using their Xbox One to play Xbox Series X games. Now, this does require a hardwired internet connection and a really strong internet connection, but they are allowing multiple ways and approaches to their gaming ecosystem. Anyways, enough of the Xbox rant. Let's talk about some of the games coming out. So, Flight Simulator is coming out next month on the 27th. Word to the wise though, this is an Xbox Series X exclusive for the moment. So if you are getting a disc copy of this for your library, you're going to want to make note to patrons before this circulates out that if they do not have an Xbox Series X, so if they only have an Xbox One at home, this game will not play for them. And so you're now entering into a period of time where it's worth paying attention to the face cover of the box to make sure that on the spine, when it says Xbox Series X or Xbox One or both, that you're being mindful of if it's just Series X. But if you are a fan of this, and definitely there is a very niche but avid audience for flight simulators, this is the first time this game is ever coming to console. So if you can afford to add it to your collection, it is definitely worth doing so, because this has been a PC exclusive since the early 90s. Coming out on November 9th is Forza Horizon 5. So this time it is set in Mexico. Very gorgeous environment, new cars, new locales to visit, but similar to Forza Horizon 4 before it, it is that basically anywhere that you see in front of you, you can travel to in your car. And, you know, there's nothing more joyous than driving a super expensive sports car or hypercar across a grassy landscape, hopping up and down and just completely destroying it. So if you have fans of this series, definitely worth adding to your collection. And again, Flight Simulator, Forza Horizon, both coming day and date through the Game Pass service. And the last one that I will highlight, but a staple of any Xbox collection in any library out there, is Halo Infinite. This is going to be the big one that you want to get for your Xbox collection. It will be available on the Xbox One, on the Xbox Series S and X. It's going to be one of those ones that's cross-platform. So one disc works on all consoles, so not to worry about exclusivity there. You can also advertise to your patrons that if they are not concerned about a single player campaign, but only want to play the multiplayer, it will be offered free of charge on the consoles. So it's something to keep an eye open for if you are running sort of any teen or emerging adult programming at your library. This is going to be a huge hit. The multiplayer is beloved by adults and teens alike. And so as it is going to be a free download on Xbox and PC, this is a great opportunity to possibly host LAN parties within your library or big multiplayer sessions for people to join in on if your COVID restrictions are lifting towards the fall. Similar to Horizon, thank you, Faith, for checking in. Yes. LAN party, super stoked. And for those watching right now, I'm just commenting on the Twitch chat happening in the corner. But with no set firm release dates. As soon as I hear about one, I will announce it in a future episode of Intro to Gaming in Libraries. However, if it's following any sort of fashion, with the 20th anniversary of the Halo franchise coming up in November, I would suspect that we will likely see a November release for this title. So expect Forza and Halo to sort of be very close to one another in terms of releases, but definitely two titles that you want to add to your Xbox collection. And again, day and dates on Game Pass. Now, the next couple of games I'm covering here are multi-platform games. So I'll specify which platforms they are coming out on specifically as I go along. But if you have any questions or feel like I've missed anything, please do not hesitate. Drop a comment in the chat, either on Twitch or YouTube. Feel free to reach out to me through my Discord. I am always happy to answer any questions or acknowledge games I may have missed. So, a double whammy on July 27th. Neo, The World Ends With You is the sequel released to the sort of cult classic The World Ends With You, which was a Nintendo DS title that came out in 2007. Neo, The World Ends With You is a sequel to that. Very long awaited. This is coming out on the Nintendo Switch as well as the PlayStation 4. So if you have really big fans of anime in your library, this is definitely a game worth picking up. Has a very unique art style. The original had you playing an RPG that focused on music and pins. So you would collect different pins to give yourself different abilities and powers. And Neo, The World Ends With You is continuing in a similar vein, though it's allowing for more traditional controls versus solely touchpad controls. Also releasing on the same day is the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. So if you have any fans of the Ace Attorney series in your library, or Danganronpa, for example, a very popular series that sort of focused on the investigative aspect of gaming, so a little more puzzling and a little more thought-provoking. The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles is in that same vein, except this time, instead of playing as Phoenix Wright, you are playing as a sort of Japanese take on Sherlock Holmes. And so with the game premise being set in the late 1800s, it sort of offers that historical perspective. But this has been a long time coming. It is an English translation of a game that was only in Japanese for a number of years. So it's going to be one of those niche titles that if you do want to add it to your collection, I would recommend picking up sooner rather than later before it becomes really hard to find. The same also goes for Neo, The World Ends With You. I suspect that those might be niche titles as the months and years go on. Coming out in September, Ubisoft is releasing Riders Republic. So if you have extreme sports fans in your library, this game is offering sort of an eclectic mix of snowboarding, dirt biking, and mountain biking all crammed in to one game. It looks absolutely bonkers, but I am ridiculously excited for this game. If you are familiar with the SSX series of titles, Riders Republic seems to promise that sort of fast-paced, extreme, over-the-top sports game within Riders Republic. And so definitely worth adding to your collection, and it acts as an alternative to more traditional sports games that come out around this time of year, including EA's NHL series, the Madden series, and the FIFA series. And so with a September 4th release date, this is going to be one that you want to keep your eyes open for. Coming out on September 10th, Bandai Namco is releasing a new game in the Tales of series. So this is an action RPG series with a very long history to it. But Tales of Arise is an upgraded first time in the Unreal Engine for game engine. And so this game looks absolutely gorgeous. It builds upon the Tales of series, and it looks to be the best game within that series thus far. So if you know games like Tales of Vesperia, Tales of Symphonia are really popular at your library, or if you have a very large manga collection, I often find my games like Tales of Arise that are more anime in nature do really well if I also have a very strong and strong anime advocates within the community that I serve. Now, coming out October 7th, so in the next month, is another Ubisoft title. This time it's Far Cry 6. Far Cry 5 released now around 2 years ago, and so Far Cry 6, instead of being set in the southern United States, is now set in Cuba. An open world first-person shooter in nature. I often find Far Cry 6 does really well in my library. It is not just shoot all the time, but actually has more of a story to it that the community, the gaming community that I serve, finds thought-provoking. And with this one having a more political charge to it, it's definitely going to be talked about amongst the gaming community. Now, I do apologize, I had not been mentioning games that I've been covering and what consoles they are coming to. So the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles is coming out for the Nintendo Switch and the PS4. Riders Republic is going to be coming to the Xbox as well as PlayStation 4, Xbox One and Xbox Series X and PS4 and PS5 consoles. Far Cry is the same as well, and then Tales of Arise is also coming to all 4 of those consoles. Battlefield 2042, I will start off with by saying it's coming to all 4 of those consoles, is a follow-up in the Battlefield series. So the last Battlefield that we got was Battlefield 5, that had a slight futuristic twist to it, but this is, instead of being far off in the future, is a little more present to where we are now. That being said, the big selling point of this game is going to be the fact that for the first time on consoles, but exclusive to the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series S and X consoles, there will be 128 player multiplayer provided. So this was sort of a player cap that was limited in the past only to the PC. We're now getting it on gaming consoles. However, this will not be available on the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One. So just something to be mindful of if your patrons are asking, does this have 128 players? If they're playing on last gen consoles, that is not available to them. It should also be noted that this game is multiplayer only. So unlike past Battlefield games, unlike Call of Duty, that tends to have a single player component to it, this is going to be multiplayer only in nature. So if you know that you don't have a very large online multiplayer focused or oriented gaming audience at your library, I'd leave it up to you if you want to add it in. So this one is a bit of a gem that was announced during E3 to rave reviews. This is being published by Eidos Montreal, the studio responsible for Deus Ex, and have worked on the Hitman series in the past, if I'm not mistaken. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is a single player only oriented game. So unlike Marvel's Avengers, which came out last year, in this game you're only playing as Peter Quinn, aka Star-Lord, with the ability to sort of micromanage the rest of your team through a rich story-focused campaign. This one does look promising, and it is available on the PlayStation 4 and 5, as well as the Xbox One and Xbox Series S and X. There will be also a cloud version available on the Nintendo Switch, but again, no physical copy. When I say cloud version, it means that it's going to have to be one that is digitally purchased only and then downloaded onto your console, and it'll be a small download, and then the rest of it requires a constant internet connection to play off of cloud servers. And so outside of October, we skip on over to December 7th, and what looks to be the last major game release of 2021, and that is Dying Light 2. This will be coming out for the PlayStation 4 and 5 console, as well as the Xbox One and Xbox Series S and X. And it is a first-person, post-apocalyptic zombie survival game. So if you have lots of fans of The Walking Dead in your library, Dying Light is worth picking up. The first one was a niche title, but one that really gained a deep community for its first-person nature, with parkour elements. And so it's very fast paced. You're constantly hopping over things. If you are familiar with the EA game Mirror's Edge, essentially put zombies in Mirror's Edge and you have Dying Light 2. But you also can craft weapons from anything that you find in the game world. So if you find yourself at year end still able to purchase video games or with a bit of money left in your gaming budget, this is definitely one worth keeping an eye open for, and adding to your collection. And yeah, that about covers it for all of the games today. Again, we are in June, so there might be more games that come up throughout the year, and I will of course highlight these as I go along. But from E3 2021, these were my top picks that I thought I would highlight to add to your gaming collection. Again, if I missed anything, always feel free to add it to the chat or comment on YouTube. And as the year goes along, I will be adding to this list. Included in the end of this PowerPoint are some of the resources that I use to draw the cover art from. And I thank you for your time tonight and for tuning in. So my name is Chris, the Gaming Librarian, and I am signing out for tonight. See you later and happy gaming.